having me here. I do really appreciate it. I have been coming to the Boston AREIA since their very first meeting. It is a great group. I've met so many wonderful people here, made so many great contacts. And as she said, I've grown from just started getting into real estate when I started coming here and have grown and expanded quite a bit since then. So, here.
To the right. Unlike Beyonce.
Yeah. Excuse me. So what I'm going to be talking about here is my first rehab deal. The good, the bad, and the ugly. This was out in Chicopee, Massachusetts. Does anybody remember where I said I would like to buy east of? Worcester. Does anybody know where Chicopee, Massachusetts is? Yes, not east of Worcester. Now, those of you who know where Chicopee is, you are ahead of me when I first started evaluating this property. For some reason, I don't know why, I thought it was on the South Shore. It just sounds kind of South Shore Capey to me, Everything else out there is like Springfield, Westfield, everything's a borough or a field or some very uninteresting kind of name. But Chicopee, it's kind of, sounds like the stuff down there. So, I had absolutely no idea what this place was when I started looking at it. One of the things I'm going to be highlighting today are some of the good things and some of the mistakes that I made. So that would be the first thing. You generally want to know where the property is. So, also remember when we were kids and they would have like the cartoons that had the title and then their little alternate title. So, like I said, this one is the good, the bad, and the ugly of my first rehab project with the alternate title of, wait, where the is Chicopee? Alright, so just a little bit about who I am. I was born and raised in Drake, Massachusetts, up by Lowell and the New Hampshire border. Graduated from Boston University in 2000, had degrees in math and chemistry, a physics minor. Graduated from Boston College's Carroll School of Management with an MBA and a Master's of Finance in 2007. Started in real estate in March in 2007 when we converted our primary residence to our first rental unit. We bought in 2004 on the wrong side of a flip. Don't really have to go into detail of why it didn't make sense to sell it in 2007.
Right.
Went full-time nominally in January of 2010 when I lost my previous job, and I decided, I don't really want to do that anymore. You'll see on the timeline here that I didn't necessarily hit things on all cylinders in January of 2010, but that's when I nominally became full-time. So how I started in real estate, as I said, in 2007, we converted our primary residence into a rental. So we kind of liked that. It worked out pretty well. It was right near Boston College, strong rents in Brighton out there. So we quickly purchased two similar properties to use as rentals. Did just like the books tell you how to do it. Get it for like 90% of what it's worth. Do an NOI, figure out what the rents are and your expenses. We liked the fact that people were mailing us money every month. Unfortunately, the cash flow was not great because, A, the books don't really tell you how to make tons of money. And we overestimated the rents, and we underestimated the expenses because we didn't know what we were doing. Wasn't too bad. I had big enough cushions where, we weren't like losing money or anything like that, but certainly it was not get rich quick. It was get rich maybe eventually, but really, 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 really slow. So at that point, we got into a holding pattern for a little while because, A, obviously things weren't that amazing, and we basically blew our wad with all of our capital. And interestingly, that's right around when this meeting started. So all this happened right before I started coming here. So I was interested in real estate, but had no idea what I was doing and had no network. And then I started coming here and learned some stuff, but didn't have any money. At one point I realized it's I want to be a real estate investor, but I'm not making offers on any properties. So it's kind of hard to buy houses if you don't ask somebody to have them sell you your house. So kind of in May 2011, again, I went full-time in January 2010. So it kind of took a little while of sort of the analysis paralysis of getting things set and getting ready to really make my dive into stuff. But at that point, I kind of knew what I wanted to do. I had my network, and something just kind of clicked, and I started making tons and tons of offers. My philosophy was I tried to make conservative ARVs and high rehab budgets, use a fairly standard Mayo. Okay.
Does everybody know what MAO stands for?
Maximum allowable offer. Again, you'll see this in all sorts of books and courses and stuff like that. People will talk about it. Basically, you don't want to offer any more than this. You're not allowed to offer more than this. So what I use, a lot of people will use 70. Some people will go as high as 75 or 80 if it's a really hot market. You hear, sometimes you hear people go as low as 60. Generally don't hear anything less than that. But I do 65% of ARV minus the rehab cost. And in my rehab cost, I try to include 6 months of holding costs. Not financial costs, because I don't necessarily know how I'm going to finance it, but I do try to take into account taxes, utilities, insurance, all that kind of stuff that you're going to have. And you can definitely turn stuff over quicker than that, but if it's a major rehab and you're going to sell it to a retail buyer, it's really hard to turn it over in less than 3 or 4 months, and 6 is pretty realistic. And so then I took that offer, and I was offering 90% of that as my first offer. So I was putting in a lot of offers, but I felt pretty safe on those. And they say you should be embarrassed by your offers. You really should be embarrassed by your offers. If you don't feel a little bit stupid making the offer, then you're probably paying too much. And you're going to see from this that the offer that I got on this one was pretty embarrassing, but they took it anyway. All right, so talking about 619 Broadway in Chicopee, listed at $63,000. It started off at $90,000. When I got my offer accepted, it was 138 days on market, but that does not include 20 days where it was unlisted. So basically, it was listed under one MLS number. They let it expire. About 3 weeks later, they relisted it under a new number. So that was an additional 20 days that the bank was holding it. So what a lot of people try to say. So I'm a real estate agent, so I know this because you can see this on MLS. If you don't have MLS, basically the reason people do this is because of investors and home buyers and stuff who don't have MLS. It's much harder to find out this kind of thing if you're looking at like Zillow or Trulia, RealQuest, Foreclosure.com, that kind of stuff. When it comes under a new MLS number, a lot of times you would lose some of this information. So those of you who think it's not that important to have MLS, this is an example of where MLS is actually quite important. Because otherwise I would have thought, oh man, it's only been on the market for 15 days or something like that. They're not going to, it's not stale, so people aren't going to want to take a lower offer. So I made 2 offers on it. The only 2 offers, interesting thing about this was a HUD property. Who in here, other than Gall, has bought HUD properties? Because I know Gall's bought tons of them. So not really many people. So an interesting thing about that is when you put in an offer for HUD, they give you this confirmation, and it has this long string of meaningless numbers, and then dash some other number. At the time, I didn't know this, but subsequently I found out that that is actually supposed to represent which number offer you were. So I went back after the fact. I looked at my offers, and they were -1 and -2. So that's why I'm pretty sure I'm the only one who put in offers on this. Because it sucked at $63,000. But at my offer that was accepted at $34,535, that's a pretty good deal. And that is 54.8% of the list price, 38.4% of the original. So who thinks you're going to do pretty well if you're generally going to be buying stuff not much over 50% list price? Nobody thinks that's good? All right. Well, some people actually thought that would be good. So what I was planning on saying is you were wrong. Because if I bought it at half of this number, it wouldn't have been that good because I would have been paying about $12,000 more than what I did. Which, you'll see I still would have done okay, but not nearly as well. I think if most people agree it's better to buy for half the list price than to buy for more than that. But, depending on how overpriced your property is, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a good deal. So, I was trying to get into wholesaling at this time, so I was like, oh, this will be my great intro into wholesaling. Because as I discovered, Chicopee is really far away. Once I figured out where it was, I'm like, I don't really want to go there. Next, I've never done a project before, so doing something that turned out to be about an hour and 20-minute drive from my house, not necessarily a good one to start with. Also, we'll go through it. It was actually a pretty big scope of work, so it was a fairly large project to start with as well. So those 2 combinations, neither of which are really a great thing to do for your first rehab project. I didn't know any contractors out there, it's going to be really hard, even if I could find people and get bids, it's like, again, driving an hour and a half to, like, meet with some guys and get some bids, and then, the first couple ones don't work out, having to find more. Not a process that I was looking forward to. And I didn't have any network out there. As I mentioned, I had been coming to this meeting for years, had actually built a pretty strong network of people out here that I could work with, so, I was hoping to find projects out here and could utilize some of that, but, most of them didn't have great contacts out there. A few people were able to help me, but for the most part, all the connections I built up weren't any good. So I figured I just should wholesale. Makes the most sense. So what do? You market. So first, obvious thing to do is bring it to the REIAs. There's a REIA in Springfield. That was a perfect place to do it. Unfortunately, it went out of business a couple months before that. Well, that's all right. There's one in Worcester. That one went out of business, I think, literally that month. So, this actually was the closest REIA at that point, because it's right off the pike. And I did market it here, and nobody cared, because nobody wanted to work in Chicopee. Same reason I wanted to get rid of it, nobody wanted to buy it. I did put ads on Craigslist, had a few responses, nobody particularly serious. A couple people did check out the property, but never heard back from them. I even went as far as calling, the We Buy Houses people that worked out there. The Hampton Home Buyers were the big ones, and then there were a few other ones. Nobody got back in touch with me. And then, referrals, again, my network and stuff. Not that many people knew things, but I did tell enough people, and when they were networking, they heard anybody who might be interested, they did get in touch with me. Did actually get one serious buyer out of that. Of course, this presentation is about my first rehab deal, not my first wholesale deal, so the wholesale went bad. Buyer did sign a P&S and put down a non-refundable deposit. We were out there. He brought out a local realtor, and a contractor to help get their ARV numbers and rehab costs. So he was very serious. Had lined up hard money and was going to double close with me on my contract date. Husband and I, unlike a lot of foreclosures, you can't double close on these. There's no deed restrictions or anything like that. You can't sign the contract, but you can't double close, which sometimes you can, but most of the time you can't with foreclosed properties. So it is actually possible to wholesale these. But unfortunately, the hard money lender got cold feet 2 days before the closing, and I could do a 3-hour presentation on all the creative ideas that we came up with to try to salvage the deal. But nothing really worked out.